Guys, good Friday afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We're live in Charlottesville, across Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, on the I Love CVille Network. It's comprised of every social media platform known to mankind. We put approachable, newsworthy, informative, and positive content on social media and on smartphones. And folks, we have quickly become the platform that citizens in this community and region watch, listen, and learn from. We understand the responsibility that comes with it, and we work hard daily to provide that content that is meaningful, impactful, and well-researched. We thank Skooma Boutique Dispensary for being a part of this program, located next to Rapture Restaurant. David and his team at Skooma Boutique Dispensary have certificates of analyses for everything in the store. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine, just a fantastic partner of this show. Interstate Service Company. We've worked alongside ISC for nearly a decade. A business started in 1969, a business that undoubtedly means so much to us here at V&V Brands and I Love CVille. This show is going to be a recap program of the week that was. I'm also going to offer new insight on things that are transpiring around Charlottesville. Folks, Fox's Cafe and the land adjacent to Fox's Cafe, the land holding Fox's Cafe for sale. We told you about that. It's getting some move and some interest by a number of speculative investors that see the mixed-use potential for Fox's Cafe and the land next to it as well. We'll talk about that on today's program. We will talk today about the city manager's resignation, more attrition anticipated within City Hall. We had conversations with leaders in this community today about that attrition. We had Juan Diego Wade and Brian Pinkston on today's edition of Real Talk. I'm going to give you some insight into what transpired today on Real Talk and some of the conversations that were very real and very frank today on Real Talk. Keith Smith does a hell of a job with that program. We got office space across from Garrett Square, the 323 building, just a gorgeous building. Office space to the tune of 49,000 square feet that's been leased by General Atomics Commonwealth Computer Corporation. This company, my friends, is going to bring a tremendous amount of employees from outside the region, pay them really darn well, and they're going to need places to live. That topic on today's show. We got UVA football that has been winning games by the skin of their teeth. I mean, Bronco Mendenhall and this Virginia football team, lo and behold, are very much in the thick of things in the Coastal Division and a couple victories away from bowl eligibility. That topic on the I Love CVille Show. Your questions, your comments, your concerns, your ideas for topics on this show, always welcome. Share them in the feed. Send me a direct message. I will mention them live on air on the I Love CVille Show. Justin Vanderlinda from Taste Shack was on yesterday's program. He was absolutely dynamite. Taste Shack's going to open next week. This guy is of smoked barbecue fame. Justin is going to have a business in Taste Shack that I think is going to undoubtedly have success in a saturated food and beverage market in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. We'll give you some perspective on why we think Justin and Taste Shack are just going to be a business we are all chomping at the bit to try. I think the first topic that we have to hit on today's program is potentially maybe a weekend of brevity and pause and catch your breath for local government. I mean, good night. Every day we wake up, we ask ourselves, what is next for Charlottesville and City Hall? And folks, a few days after the city manager offers his letter of resignation to councilors, we're now hearing from folks within City Hall that 2 more deputies are quitting, piecing out, hasta luegoing, and hitting the road jack. In fact, I confirmed this morning that David Brown, the Director of Public Works, is leaving Charlottesville government. You have to ask yourself and wonder aloud, because we care so much of the community, why the attrition is happening. I'm not going to point fingers. I'm here to have conversations that could potentially remedy the issue. Spent 90 minutes, thanks to our friend Keith Smith, on Real Talk presented by Yes Realty Partners, and had great open-ended forum conversations with Juan Diego Wade and Brian Pinkston. Juan Diego Wade and Brian Pinkston, front runners, almost locks for the 2 open spots on council. We think, we hope, we pray that Mr. Wade and Mr. Pinkston will create the type of stability and consistency we want and ask and plead and beg for from local government. You know, I made the analogy earlier this week. It's a sports analogy. The referee should not be the focal point of a football game. The outcome of a basketball game should not be decided by a man or a woman wearing zebra clothing. A baseball game in the bottom of the 9th inning should not be determined by home plate umpires' questionable decision making. That analogy applies to Charlottesville and its government. The storyline of a world-class city should not be dysfunction and attrition and bickering and arguing and a back and forth that leaves many of us taxpayers watching as if we were watching a car accident on Interstate 64, rubbernecking as we go by. All of us now, taxpayers, homeowners, renters, residents, and it's not just the city, Albemarle County, Central Virginia, we're rubbernecking and watching local government implode before our very eyes. It's time that local government not be the headline or the story. It's time for the story to be small business. It's time for the story to be residents and the positive impact they're making in the communities. The nonprofits of the world, the Scott Williamses of Camp For Real, that are creating nonprofits that offer the next generation, our children, my son, our son, your kids, opportunities to live and to learn and to play and to abide by the golden rule in positive settings. These are the stories I want to see in the newspaper, on TV shows, on talk shows. And for that to be the case, it's time for local government and our elected officials to realize that it's not about them. Instead, it's about the constituents they are representing. I've said this so many times on this program, I will reiterate it and say it again. Brian Pinkston said something on this program about 11 months ago. He said, I want to be the consistent leader that's in the background, that people don't necessarily have his name on the tip of their tongues. And Mr. Brian Pinkston, amen. Amen. The referee should not determine the outcome of the ball game. The elected officials should not determine the brand or the perception of the municipality. The constituents, the voters, the taxpayers, and the residents should determine the brand, the outcome, the image, and the direction of the municipality. And right now, that is not the case. I've been in this town for 21 years. Came here as a first year at the University of Virginia. And in 21 plus years of calling Charlottesville home, I have never been more emotionally invested, physically invested, financially invested, family invested in this community. My wonderful wife and I are raising our son here. Our business is called I Love CVille. It hurts my soul to see dysfunction overshadow positivity. It hurts my heart to see divisiveness dominate creativity, entrepreneurial spirit, philanthropic endeavors. We have so much good, so many people committed to hiring, to giving back, to sacrificing for the betterment of not only the city, not only Albemarle County, but this region. And every day we wake up and we ask ourselves, what's next? Who's the next individual to resign, get fired, or not even show up for the job in the first place? What is the next thing an elected official is going to say to the New York Times that is negative about a community that we live within? I yearn for the days, for the months, for the years where policymakers were background stakeholders and not individuals on the tip of tongues of people everywhere within 60 or 90 miles of the city. Don't you? In 21 years of being in this community, I have never been more concerned, trepid, and I hate to say this because I'm a positive guy. I'm an entrepreneur. I have to be a positive guy. You have to be a positive person when you're in business for yourself, especially a family business, because 80% of them fail in their first 3 years of life. Mine, fortunately, are in year 13 of existence. And in my time of living here, of persuading my beautiful wife to quit a hedge fund job at Blackstone in the Big Apple, to change her life forever, to come down to a place where she knew only one person, to raise our now 3.5-year-old, and parents that are watching, you know when your child is born how your world changes completely, a complete 180. And there's nothing that she and I want more than our little boy to have opportunity, to have a bright future, to have kindness, to have friends and love. And until we get Charlottesville's government turned around, the divisiveness will resonate at viral levels. The divisiveness within government is resonating at a virality that is at policy pandemic magnitudes. I sat next to Juan Wade and Brian Pinkston right here on this set. If you could, my friend, go to the studio camera, Judah Wickower. Look at the screen. Please look at the screen now. Juan Wade and Brian Pinkston and Keith Smith sat right here this morning for darn near close to an hour and 45 minutes. And I watched and I listened. I listened to learn. I absorbed. I digested. Two men, one African American, one white. I watched two men openly, clearly, and succinctly explain that we want to be in the background of policy and decision making. We want to stabilize, be consistent in our mood and demeanor. We want to lead, not in the forefront, but in the background. These gentlemen clearly said, we don't have all the right answers. We will be wrong at times. We are human beings, and to err is human. But we will make decisions in a way that is best for the community in totality as champions of Charlottesville, as opposed to making decisions that are focused on a portion of the community, on a subset of the community. When you become an elected official, you become the champion and the evangelist of the municipality. If you're unwilling to be the champion and the evangelist of the municipality, then local government is not met for your skill set or personality. There is undoubtedly a role for activism, and it's needed. Activism is needed. But the mindset of activism is very different than the mindset of an elected official who galvanizes instead of divides, who leads in totality instead of a subset. My friends, I am ready for the storyline to be small business. I'm ready for the storyline to be government attracts new businesses to the area through economic development, and then government makes a focused push of hiring within the community. Because when we can attract new businesses to Charlottesville and Central Virginia through tax credits, through policy, through green tape, we have leverage, and that leverage can be utilized with the businesses and brands we attract to the region to incentivize them to hire within Charlottesville, within Albemarle, within Fluvanna, Louisa, Greene, Nelson, Gordonsville. You want to know how we solve affordability issues in our community? You want to know how? Well, one way is to attract new businesses to the region, incentivize them to come, but caveat that incentivization with a policy of hiring your personnel from the community instead of bringing it from outside the community to within. When you utilize economic development to bring new firms and big brands to this fine region, and you do not caveat that the personnel they hire must be or should be or encouraged to be from the region, then you further gentrify the jurisdiction. Guys, we live here for many of the common reasons. How many of you guys say we live in the Charlottesville and Central Virginia region because we love the hiking and the mountains and the outdoor offerings? How many of us say we live in the Charlottesville and Central Virginia region because we love the music scene and the impact that Red Light Management and Core and Capshaw have in attracting global musicians to play the Ting Pavilion, the Paramount, the Jefferson, the Southern, and the John Paul Jones Arena? How many of you say, I live in Charlottesville and in Central Virginia and in this region because I'm a foodie and I love the restaurants like Dean Maupin's C&O, like Peter Castiglione and Christian Kelly's Maya restaurant, like Justin Vanderlinda's soon-to-open Taste Shack, like Marigold and Keswick Hall, Catherine Matthews' Iron Poffles, the Finazzo Sal's Cafe Italia, Andy McClure's Citizen Burger Bar, the Virginian or the Biltmore, Michael Lewis's Boylan Heights. How many of you live in the region because you love Tony Bennett, Brian O'Connor, Bronco Mendenhall, and the talent that UVA Athletics puts on a national stage? We won national championships left and right. How many of you guys live in the region and are proud to say you're from Central Virginia because of the breweries, the wineries, and the cideries? How many of you live in the region and are proud to say you're from Central Virginia because of the work offerings that are offered from UVA? How many of you live in the region because you spent 4 years of the best of your life as a student at the university and you wax nostalgic of those 4 years and say, you know what, I want to stay here again. I want to create a family and a life here again. Folks, everything I just outlined right there, I embody, I identify with, and I'm certain that you, in either totality or a portion, do as well. When you have a region that is so rich in its amenities, you will immediately become a magnetic attraction for folks who live in areas that aren't nearly as rich with their offerings and their amenities. And the buzz is palpable, and it will circulate regionally, nationally, and globally to men and women, moms and dads, students, college, baby boomers, retirees, and they'll say, you know what? Everyone's talking about Charlottesville and Central Virginia. I want to get a taste of it too. And that is how an area that 21 years ago, when I started as a first year at the University of Virginia, was a sleepier, quieter, more unknown city and community. Something flying under the radar that graduates of the university may have known of. Today, we get monikers like best place to live in America. Today, we get monikers like the Palo Alto or the Silicon Valley of the East Coast. Today, we have monikers like the best place to have a bachelorette or bachelor party on the East Coast. Today, we have monikers like the best place to hold your wedding on the East Coast. Today, we have monikers like the best place for wine on the East Coast. Today, we have monikers like world-class squash facility at the Boar's Head, world-class tennis at the Boar's Head. Today, we have monikers that are known legitimately in global capacities. And if our policymakers and our decision makers do not realize that they are not the story, that the story is this area that's rich in amenities, rich in quality education, that we need to foster and champion these amenities and figure out a way where we can keep locals living in this rich, amenitied environment. If our policymakers don't realize that we need to keep locals capable, willing, and financially able to live in the municipality or the region, then they are doing a disservice to us. They are not the story. The story is this. You got 49,000 square feet of newly leased office space right next to Friendship Court. General Atomics Commonwealth Computer Corporation. They're bringing an army of people from outside the area. You got Fox's Cafe, the land that holds Fox's Cafe, and the land next to Fox's Cafe. That's on the market right now. $1.5 million asking price. Tremendous density opportunities for this piece of real estate. That's literally what you see when you enter Belmont. You got what is undoubtedly the most important election in Charlottesville city history on the 2nd of November. An election that will determine the future land use map and increased density in Charlottesville City. An election that will undoubtedly determine the new city manager. An election that will undoubtedly determine significant open positions within City Hall. An election that will determine the new police chief or influence the new CEO of the police department. An election that will determine how this jurisdiction finds, establishes, and creates its brand identity in the wake of August 12, 2017. An election that will determine school reconfiguration. An election that will determine how municipalities in Central Virginia mingle, network, and work with each other. How are you going to create affordable housing in Charlottesville when there's no more land to leverage and utilize? Perhaps you start thinking about joint ventures with other counties that have ample land. And you think with these joint ventures, why don't I take some of this $200+ million of a yearly budget that is Charlottesville's, and we utilize that $200+ million, we shave a percentage of it off, and we create a more robust, consistent, and reliable transportation system, because we understand capitalism and this invisible hand is outpacing affordable housing efforts. But if affordable housing and public transportation, we know, go hand in hand, if we can get public transportation consistent, reliable, approachable, and ubiquitous, then folks can live in the counties around Charlottesville and commute without the additional overhead of wear and tear in a vehicle. Gasoline is going to go to $4 a gallon at the end of this year. You look at what you were paying this time last year during the pandemic, and you look at what you're paying now. This time last year, your car probably cost $25 or $30 to fill up its tank. Now, $50 to $60 to fill up its tank. Wait in 30 or 45 days when gas goes up 40 to 50 cents. Who does that impact the most? Folks living on the margin financially. That's the answer. If we don't start getting out of the way of ourselves as elected officials, and if we don't start getting a macro position, a macro vision, a vision of let's create a plan as opposed to reacting to travesty. Let's prevent the travesty as opposed to reacting to it in hindsight. That's what entrepreneurs do that are successful. Vision. Direction. Not reaction. I am so bullish on Charlottesville and Albemarle in Central Virginia. But I am bearish on local government. I'm bullish on Charlottesville because of entrepreneurs like Justin Vanderlinde, Tayshak next week, 29 North. I'm bullish because of nonprofit leaders like Scott Williams, Camp for Real. I'm bullish on Charlottesville because of the booming nature of our amenities, we are so fortunate to live here. Why don't we utilize our efforts, our sweat, our platforms, our megaphones, our souls to showcase the grace and the beauty and the positivity instead of the divisiveness and the negativity? This seems like common sense to me, but it's not happening. City Hall has more holes on its employment roster than Swiss cheese. It's had more attrition on its employment roster than any level of government I've ever seen. Secret recordings, airing of dirty laundry in public forums, on the dais, and local meetings that are going to damn near close to 2 in the morning. Enough. Enough. November 2nd, the most important election in Charlottesville, Virginia's history. It's not even close. Neil Williamson says elections matter. And damn it, local elections impact our day-to-day lives exponentially more than federal and Commonwealth elections. Vote. Realize when you cast your ballot that who you put in office will undoubtedly determine the brand, the image, and the direction Charlottesville goes. And for the folks, the friends, the family that don't live in the city, who say what happens in downtown Charlottesville does not impact me, I'm here to respectfully correct you and say, with all due respect, you are wrong. City dynamics determine regional futures. I will say it again. City dynamics determine regional futures. Let's get the city moving in the direction we want and watch as it has a trickle-over impact to a region we call Central Virginia. My friends, I wish you the best. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille Show.